Hi. Hang on. We are now live. Thank you for your help, MJ. And we're going to invite Malkie to join us. Yes, we are. I'm excited to see everyone on the internet after our break last week. Yeah. Oh, we got a little pro going. MJ's had a very hard day. There was the siren this morning for the moment of silence for the Holocaust Memorial Day, and that was upsetting. And then she locked herself in a bedroom.
And meanwhile, Pepper just walked into the room, saw what I was about to do, and literally turned around and walked out. I'm offended.
She has no patience for this nonsense. Unlike MJ, who wants her own channel. She deserves to be the star.
Yes. Pepper actually has her own Instagram. My daughter runs Pepper's Instagram. So what is it? It's a Pepper Papucci or something like that. If anybody has.
I know I follow and like, but don't actually remember the name.
I'm not sure she's updated it in a while, but that's Pepper's. Yeah.
You can remind her, but I think we actually have someone watching.
Oh my God.
So we should probably. I don't know.
For real?
I see a little one. So, welcome. I am Havva Mahler, practitioner of Chinese medicine and expert in Chinese astrology, and with me is
Malkie Rimon, life coach to women who want a boost upward.
Nice. And this is
what? Oh, right. And this is our live podcast. There we go. Instacast. Thriving Sucks.
Thriving Sucks. Welcome back. We're after a week's break for Passover. And as you all know, if you stop anything for any point of time, picking it back up is hell.
It's a challenge, yeah. It's a challenge.
Yeah. Well, I have, I'm anticipating a bit. I have to chair a local businesses networking meeting tomorrow. And there were 2 weeks off because of how Passover landed across the days we usually meet. And so I'm just anticipating keeping people on track being a challenge, which I shouldn't. I should be open to the moment as it comes.
Yeah. And I have to be, if I'm totally honest, picking this back up is super easy. Being on time, that was more of a challenge. I made it on time.
I am impressed.
But picking it back up was like, I was looking forward to it. This is a highlight of my week. If I'm totally honest, I really enjoy these. Like,
I do.
I would do these even if no one was watching. I mean, I like that people watch, don't get me wrong, but I do them even if no one was watching.
Absolutely, yes. And I think just having interesting chats with fascinating people is my happy place. And MJ likes it when I sit in one place.
We have to be very careful because that is literally Trigonometry's tagline.
Oh no! I have no idea what that is. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not going to worry about what's going on.
One of the stars of that is a Russian expat, like I am, right? So he's got it's interesting to find like the ways in which people who have a somewhat similar background to me, the places where we are similar, the places where we're different. And Pepper walked back in again, and she walked back out again.
But you are still talking to the little box.
I am.
All right. Well, welcome back. After the break, everyone's getting back to normal.
Or something.
The cats have had a hard day, but they'll recover. Well.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we do it again next week. More sirens.
And we're going to do it again next week. So we should probably just acknowledge before we continue that it is Holocaust Memorial Day in Israel. And there's a lot of things going on. But it's a very crowded month in Israel, and we can't keep rescheduling the podcast every time something happens. So,
although
next week for Independence Day, I think we're going to have to skip.
We're going to have to take. Oh gosh, I hate that, but yeah, it's Independence Day is independent, and it's just after Memorial. Like in Israel, it's really amazing because we have Memorial Day for the soldiers who fall. Memorial Day for our fallen soldiers, which it's a very small country. Everyone has lost someone, and it's it's really hard because we're all, and now on top of it, it's also Memorial, like they included like Memorial Day for people who died in terrorist attacks also on this Memorial Day. And there, everybody absolutely knows somebody. We'll talk later. Just, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and then so from this really heavy day, we enter like this incredible celebration of this joyous, it's like, it's emotional whiplash from like this grief to joy. It's grief to joy whiplash every single year.
Well, I saw. I was asking about this. I saw that your sister, actually, here, we're getting really far afield here, but she posted on Facebook about going from the memorial prayer to the 145th Psalm. Happy are they, and that whiplash, which I also felt, because I actually led that this year. And on the last day of Passover, I was asked to do that, and I had never really appreciated the speed with which we go from the memorial for those who have departed to happy are they who dwell in your house. Yeah. It's tough to do emotionally. It's tough to do musically. I
can't even imagine.
but yeah. Anyway, so that leads us into our topic here.
Yes.
Which we wanted to talk today about memory and how memories serve us.
Or don't.
Well, how they're meant to, theoretically.
Yeah. What their actual function is. Okay. Yes. Okay.
So one thing that fascinated me, it made perfect sense in retrospect as soon as I read it, but that blew my mind when I was introduced to the concept, which is that your memory does not exist. It's not intended to be an accurate representation of things that have happened. I think I grew up kind of assuming that memory is like your brain tries to keep track of what happened and it doesn't always manage to, and then you have failures of memory, but in point of fact that is not even how it's supposed to work.
Okay, so this is something I was a little bit more aware of. I remember listening up to this for the first time when I was a kid, where when police investigate a crime and they say, you know, what color was the car, they're going to get 5 different answers. And the actual car color is going to be something else completely. It's not, people just can't remember that kind of detail, but they'll believe that they did. So already I had this introduction to memory as being really fallible.
Well, they can't remember that level of detail unless they had reason to think in advance the color of the car is important. And so one of the examples that was given in the book, that sadly I did not check what the title is because of the aforementioned having a little bit of difficulty getting back into the regular schedule of getting the podcast on time, but I will look up and put it in the notes, is the author took the example of people who find out that the quiet, nice neighbor they've lived next to for years is a serial killer or has committed some other horrible crime. And he says the day of, everyone's like, I can't believe it. He's such a nice man. He never did anything suspicious. And if you ask them a month later, they'll all say, oh, I was, I always thought there was something weird about him. He did all these things that seemed odd. And she's like, and you might think they're making it up to like seem like they knew more or something, but they're not. What happens is their brain, immediately upon finding out that someone is dangerous, scans every interaction you've ever had with them, looking for anything that was unusual, any way that they acted that other people don't, and tagged it as a danger sign.
Oh, wow. So that anytime they see that behavior in the future, they'll, even though at the time that it happened, they did not notice it, on that rescan process, they notice it. They go, okay, that was like out of the ordinary. And then so the next time they see it, they'll go, okay, this is out of the, I saw this once before. It's not even conscious or aware.
It's not conscious. It's not even out of the ordinary. It's things that, anything that didn't stand out to them at all, they won't necessarily remember. But anything that stood out as, that's funny, or that's an interesting turn of phrase, or it must be because he's from out of town, anything that did stand out, their brain retags not as a sign of it might be suspicious, but anyone who does this is a serial killer.
Okay, so this is really okay. So this happened to me, and you just explained it to me because I am the world's least suspicious person. It's to the point of it being a personality flaw. Honestly, like there is a point at which some survival skills would probably be a good idea. And there's a guy who exists in similar circles that I do that I thought was like odd. That's it. He's like odd. Would I describe him as a nice guy? No, I wouldn't describe him as anything. And I actually even, like, whatever, let's not go into that level of detail, but I thought that he was just, an ordinary guy. And I am part of a single ladies group where his photo came up with all the red flags. It turns out that he is not a good person. Let's just leave it at that. And just so that like the single women in the area who might potentially be set up with him or go out with him know that they are in for a world of hurt if they make the mistake of accepting a date with him. Like apparently he's really horrible. And then after that, I was like, yeah, I always knew there was something about him. Hey, wait a second. No, I didn't. I didn't. I mean, at the time, I just thought he was an odd duck. I didn't know.
Yeah, so that's literally, and from now on, if you see that behavior, your brain will try and categorize it not just as being odd, but as a red flag to be concerned about. And this is something that can actually, it's one of the things that contributes to things like out-group mistrust and stereotyping, because if the serial killer was someone who had no odd behaviors from my perspective, I don't have anything to pick up on. But if I ever find out something bad about someone who had anything, who acted in any way or had any traits that were unusual to me, my brain will tag those as warning signs.
Yep. So my brain did. Turns out everything is in fine working order. But what does that mean for the memories that we do have? Like it basically makes all of our memories suspect. All of our memories
are continually being updated in the light of current information. It's like, or it might be easier to think of it as every time we look at our memories, we're looking at them through our current lens, which was not the lens that they were made through. And so they will be distorted by that change.
Apparently, if I understand correctly, and I cannot quote the person who says it, but on the neuroscience podcast that I occasionally peek into, apparently once you open up a memory, when you retrieve it and you remember it, what you put back is how you experience the memory this time. Not the original memory is gone.
There's also my understanding of the science. You rewrite it every time you access it.
Which is kind of wild, which means that you can, to some extent, I mean, obviously rewriting history anybody can do, especially these days. And
they've done studies and shown that you can give people false memories with about half an hour of work if you do it right, and you're in a position of authority where people will accept your version of events.
Yeah. I've got a story about that I cannot share, but it involving
Yeah, all right. Yeah. But the other interesting thing, like the other thing that really amazes me about memory, but that I found out before, but that makes sense in light of this, is that when you are attaching an emotional tag to a memory, it was good, it was bad, it was happy, it was sad, to an event you're remembering, the only thing your brain takes into account was the high point, the low point, and how it ended. So if you have an experience that was like 95% good, but it wasn't really good, and then the ending sucked, it gets tagged as a negative experience. And one of the things that they use this with is when doing medical procedures, if they have the choice between getting something unpleasant done as fast as possible or taking a little longer, but gradually easing up as you move on, they'll choose the second one now, or they're supposed to, because that has the entire experience stored as a less unpleasant memory.
Okay.
You can have 15 minutes of intense pain, or 15 minutes of intense pain followed by 2 or 3 minutes of people gently helping you, still being in pain, but it's a little less, and people are nicer to you and telling you, don't worry, it's going to be over. Which also makes it, they also say this, by the way, is why it's better not to overstuff your vacation, like end your vacation one day early so you have one whole day to just go home and unpack and relax, rather than do one more cool thing and then get home all stressed out. But this also makes sense when you think about the purpose of the memory being to let us know whether we want to do that again or not. Not to remember what actually happened, but to prime our future behavior. So if the experience was enjoyable, but I didn't like the result, then my brain doesn't want me to do it again. Or if the experience was awful, but I got a great result, like having a baby, then your brain doesn't necessarily, it doesn't want to look at everything that happened before. It wants you to remember, look, baby, see, you got a baby. You should do this again.
Very true. That's basically what happens. Yeah. So I'm going to just take this not in a direction where we intended, but we're just coming off of Passover, which is all about intergenerational memory. That's literally the stated purpose of the holiday is intergenerational memory. And now we've got Holocaust Memorial Day, which is also intergenerational memory. Where does that play a role in terms of, are we talking about individual memory? Are we talking about collective memory? What means
So when
what?
we're talking about the actual biology, which is what we've been discussing so far, then we're talking about individual memory. But I was literally just reading the latest post by Tom Urban, I think is the pronunciation, Tim Urban, Wait But Why, the Procrastination Monkey, is what I think his most well-known thing, about how free speech is what enables human beings in a society to function as neurons in order to create a general consensus of opinion, or a general opinion of what happened or what is happening. And so in that case, I would suspect that, I am sure that what happened, that what gets stored as history is more, or certainly up until modern times when you actually could record things as they happened, was much more about what purpose does this story serve than what actually happened. And even in modern times, I can think of recently two, I don't want to get into politics and debatable issues, but and controversial issues, but there were two major news stories where they broke the story and then it turned out it never happened, and everyone's like, but everyone knows that sort of thing does happen.
Right.
Right. And the function of having a story that you can a specific individual story that can be the cohesion point for a lot of more general things that have happened, certainly serves a function in society.
Okay, so back to the individual memory. Does that mean that our older memories are less, what's the word for it, trustworthy or reliable than our current memories, or are they all equally suspect?
Memories that we have reviewed more often are less reliable, which would tend to be the older one. I mean, the older ones you had more of a chance to review, right. But my understanding is that if you suddenly remember something that you haven't thought about since you were 6, it's probably a pretty accurate representation of a 6-year-old's understanding of what was going on. Whereas a story that gets told every birthday party is much more likely to be changed over the years. Except for, and this is very, very important, and it ties into how trauma works, except for traumatic memories. Traumatic memories, flashback memories, memories that get triggered and take over your consciousness and prevent you from interacting with what's actually going on around you, are accurate representations of what your brain picked up. They are not rewritten at all. It's the reason they stay traumatic.
Oh, wow.
They're not necessarily accurate representations of what happened because your brain gets overwhelmed with the amount of information coming in. It may not have picked up things sequentially and be able to make a cohesive story. But traumatic memories are an accurate representation of what you experienced at the time, and the process of actually being able to modify them is part of the process. Learning how to modify them, giving the brain the chance to do so, is part of the treatment for PTSD.
Okay. So let's say I have a mega traumatic memory that just happens to have gotten brought up by this conversation that's floating around in my head right now. Let's pretend.
Okay.
What would I do to rewrite it?
Okay. Well, let's start with an example of a memory which hopefully will not be triggering for anyone watching. Say you were going down to the water hole to collect water and a lion jumped out at you and scratched you, but you managed to run away and it was distracted by a wildebeest. Hopefully.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Just last week.
There is survival benefit to every time you think of going to the water hole, reliving that horrific memory if it keeps you away from a place where lions are.
Right.
And if there's another water hole you can go to, and that one doesn't trigger you, then maybe, just having that memory exist is that don't go near that water hole, there's a lion, might be beneficial. On the other hand, if you're triggered by all water holes because your brain got overly excited, or if it was a passing lion, there are never lions there, and now you're for no reason wasting hours of your life going to the further water hole, then the memory does not serve you. But just because something is trauma exists for a reason too. Mm-hmm. Just because something is a trauma doesn't necessarily mean that something is malfunctioning. But in any case, some of the ways that we work through traumatic memories, and this is like a whole thing that people have written many, many, many books about. You can even do a doctorate in, I think. But ways that you can help with that sort of traumatic memory are, one, if at all possible, sleep. I don't remember which part of sleep. It's either deep sleep or REM sleep. There's two of them. We used to think we just had dreams of REM sleep, and then we didn't dream in deep sleep. It turns out that we also dream in the period that's called deep sleep. And during one of those, and different things happen. One of them is memory consolidation, and one of them is stripping memories of emotional tags. Your memories the emotional intensity gets lessened as your brain reviews things as you sleep, which is why so many of our dreams are nightmares. Those are the ones that need to be processed.
Is also when people repeat a story that happened to them, and there was yelling and screaming involved when they tried to say, and then they'll say it really calmly, when in fact, in the actual moment, they were out of control, ramped up to 10. Okay.
Yeah, so your memories get stripped of their emotional tags as time goes on. And we don't know how brains pick what to dream about like that. But your brain, as far as I understand, based on the latest science, your brain basically replays the event while the glands that release stress hormones are inactivated. So you basically get to do what they do in the ecstasy trials, in the MDMA trials, of reliving the event without getting triggered by it. So your brain can replay the story, and each time it replays the story, the amount of emotional trauma lessens because you're not experiencing trauma during the retelling. Mm-hmm. Which is one of the reasons that the lack of the inability to sleep, which is one of the symptoms of trauma, is so problematic. So getting enough sleep is essential. If you have the opportunity to retell the story of what happened while you are walking, and not looking at your phone, but letting your eyes move and follow. This is what the woman who invented EMDR found out. EMDR is an attempt to stimulate walking through an open area where your eyes can track what's naturally happening in the clinic. There's something about disassociating the attention and the eye tracking from the story also helps. You know, if you think about it, like having your attention focused on something that's not the story, and walking outside, specifically in nature or in places where there's less symmetry, focuses your attention outwards. Telling the story to someone who was present or who knows what happened and can help you put everything in order and fill in any missing parts is known to be helpful, especially if you can do it before the memory is fully formed in the immediate aftermath of the event. Right. But not just telling it, but telling it to someone who is also there, who knows what happened, or who can find out what happened, or can logically help you. This must have happened before that. If it's a non-coherent story or a non-comprehensive one. Acupuncture. There are acupuncture points and protocols for lowering the excitability of the sympathetic nervous system, and then if you can combine that with any sort of emotional work, talking to someone, telling the story, thinking about it, getting a good night's sleep, you can do those little leave-in needles and then go to sleep with them.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Or go to therapy with them, so that you can go over the event with your body physically being less likely to be triggered. And then again, you have that same thing of you retell the story, you're not as traumatized at the time, and what gets stored back in your memory is a little less traumatic.
Okay. I'm so sorry. We need to do a time check. What time is it?
It is 4 minutes to 7.
Okay. So unfortunately, we have to wrap this up. I'm feeling really sad because my next question to you is, okay, so that was for traumatic memories, but how do we make this work for us on a day-to-day basis? Do you think you can give an answer in like 30 seconds?
Okay. 30 seconds or like 3 minutes? Is that an actual?
A minute. I gotta go.
Okay. All right. So ideally, to form happy memories, you want to end as many things as possible on a happy note. So one thing that I really remember from being a kid is sometimes my mom would take us on play dates, and she would sit and chat with the other moms, and the kids would play until like someone got tired and someone was exhausted and someone was hungry and a fight broke out, and they'd be like, all right, home we go. And then in the car we'd be exhausted and hungry and like, yeah. And I would say, did you have fun? And we'd all go, no. And she was always so confused. She's like, I saw you playing for hours. How did you not have fun? But by letting it go until we were like ready to be done, like waiting until we were tired and hungry and the fight broke out, the end of the experience wasn't good. And so the entire experience got colored by, oh, every time we go there afterwards we're exhausted and hungry and grumpy and we fought with our friends. So that was like the biggest thing I want to say is parents, please try and catch your kids before they go over the edge, and us too. And curious snap.
We'll find the high note and end on that.
Exactly.
Okay, I think we may have just found the high note.
All
what
right.
we definitely also want to do is tell people about our YouTube channel as we are beginning the process of uploading all of these videos to the YouTube channel named
Thriving Sucks.
Yes. And if you can go and subscribe and get our subscriber count up so that we can do this, because ideally we're going to be moving this over to YouTube. We're still on Instagram for the time being, but once we've got, 50 subscribers, some really small number like that.
Once we get 50 subscribers, we can start going live on YouTube, and then you get much better internet quality, and you can fast forward. Or play us
not during the live. We're still gonna.
I have a relative who can only listen to things if she can up the time, up the speed. So soon you'll be able to do that to us.
And listen to us sounding like chipmunks. Perfect.
All right. Well, take care. Happy Independence Day. We won't be here next week, but we will, God willing, the week after.
Please, God.
All right.
Okay.
Take care.
Thanks
Bye.
so much. Bye.